Hello.
Apparently, being the god of thunder not only comes with all the perks and parties and riches, but a healthy dose of enemies as well.
I'm not one to brag, but I've been told that I excel at attracting unwanted attention.
Thor has been a longtime member of the Avengers in the comics, and given that he's based on ancient Norse mythology, he's had plenty of time to stack up a pretty hefty rogues gallery of bad guys. Given Thor's incredible strength, the characters who choose to do battle with this heavy hitter must have some tricks up their sleeve. That or they flex so hard that their sleeves ripped off.
You flick too hard, damn it!
Thor is not always successful, but most of the time he comes out on top. Let's take a look at some of the strongest villains Thor has defeated right now.
I know what this is. Loki put you up to this joke. Listen, I do not have time for his pranks today.
Fair warning, this video is being written prior to my viewing of Love and Thunder. So for all I know, Gorr won that fight and butchered the God of Thunder. However, in the comics, while Gorr is certainly an imposing threat, he has been beaten by the Prince of Asgard. Gorr wields the Necro Sword, one of the most powerful weapons in the entire universe, and has used it to wipe out gods who think themselves above him across the universe. In the comics, it took multiple versions of Thor, including some of the most powerful in the multiverse, to take down this imposing villain. And even though he did have help, Thor has triumphed before over Gorr the God Butcher. Granted, this one looked a lot less like Christian Bale, but he still took out an incredibly powerful swath of characters long before he came across the Gods of Thunder. Some think these two go hand in hand. After all, how can you have Thor without Loki? The two have been in a brotherly rivalry that eventually turned very dangerous for thousands and thousands of years.
I've never met this man in my life.
He's my brother.
Adopted.
The God of Mischief and Thor's adopted brother, his hatred for the God of Thunder started at a very young age. The two have done battle time and time again, and while Loki has gotten in a few good shots, Thor usually comes out on top. In the comics, he ranges from goofy to actually a serious and imposing threat, capable of unleashing war on the entire Earth. As brothers do, they sometimes get along and work together, but it's very rare. Loki's magical powers, savvy, and overall trickery are a good match for his brother, but they are almost never enough to overcome the might of Thor. Given all the multiple Lokis we've been introduced to in the MCU, I doubt we've seen the last brotherly battle between two princes of Asgard. Malekith, the Accursed, is the leader of the Dark Elves, and a longtime enemy of Asgard and its warriors. Needless to say, he and Thor have butted heads many a times. But if you wish to see a time Thor defeated this crazed villain, look no further than the MCU. Malekith served as the main, albeit lackluster villain of Thor the Dark World, where he appeared as a centuries-old leader of the Dark Elves, desperate to use the ether to return the universe to eternal darkness. Sounds quite scary. In the comics, Malekith is often depicted with more character than the movie did, but regardless, his plan on paper is still terrifying. Thor, with the help of Jane Foster and Eric Selvig, was able to destroy Malekith when he was fully powered by the Reality Stone, crushing him with his own ship. It may have been a lackluster movie, but Malekith's power cannot be denied. The MCU version of Hela may have had some qualities of this next character, but trust me when I say she's a whole other beast. Enchantress is a deceptively powerful villain of Thor. Amora was trained from a young age in the magical arts, and perfected her abilities to such a degree that she is one of the most lethal foes of Thor. Not only because of her incredible talent for witchcraft, but also because of her serious infatuation with the God of Thunder. Thor sees good in her, but just not enough to be with her, causing a nearly unstoppable rage that overpowers characters like Nightmare and Doctor Strange. It's a wonder how Thor is able to beat her, seeing as when they're not fighting, she basically has him wrapped around her finger. This next villain is a character who was slightly nerfed and definitely altered in order to appear in the MCU, because in the comics they are capable of going toe-to-toe with Thor. Scourge was an Asgardian, who basically worked as a janitor and lookout when Loki was posing as Odin.
What's your ambition?
I just want a chance to prove myself.
When Hela came to Asgard and quickly seized control, Scourge became her executioner, hinting at his role in the comics. While he was a rather weak character who carried a nothing special axe and died redeeming himself against Hela, in the comics he actually poses a serious threat. He actually is one of Asgard's greatest warriors, who serves Enchantress, falling under her spell when he gained his desire to defeat Thor. His axe has many magical abilities that could open interdimensional portals and shoot fire. And yes, he did find the blade in Texas. What does it say about you when half your family makes it their life goal to destroy you? Kull Borson is actually the brother of Odin, making him Thor's uncle, and also the villain known as the Serpent. Being the brother of the Allfather, the Serpent is obviously an extremely powerful being capable of taking on any god. He once created a bag of enchanted hammers similar to Mjolnir, and spread them across the world to be wielded by powerful beings, who became his servants. He can reanimate the dead and transform into a giant serpent. You know, hence the name. It took all of Thor's might and him wielding the Odin sword in his father's absence in order to take his uncle down. I can only imagine how wild the family reunions on Asgard get. One of the most powerful villains in the MCU is also one of the most underrated. Malekith may have been the main villain, but his muscle and intimidation came from his right-hand man Algrim, who crushed the last Kurse stone to become the creature Kurse. This creature was actually so strong that Thor could not defeat him. He was able to swat away Mjolnir like a fly, and had Loki not used some trickery and fake self-sacrifice, he may have bested the God of Thunder. In the comics, however, well, no, actually it goes the same way most of the time. Kurse has been able to take out the likes of Beta Ray Bill, Loki, and Thor. However, since the comic is called Thor and not Kurse, Thor does eventually get the upper hand on this enchanted monster. As far as threatening names go, no Thor villain exceeds that of Mongoose. I mean, there is the God Butcher. Executioner's pretty good. Well, despite his rather silly name that he shares with a ravenous garden furry animal, Mongoose packs quite the powerful punch. Interestingly enough, he started as an actual mongoose, who underwent experiments by the High Evolutionary, a man who has created some of the deadliest creatures in the galaxy. Turns out he turned the wrong mongoose, since this one immediately turned to crime and was hired to fight Thor. He can run up buildings and is extremely strong and agile. He definitely puts up a good fight against the God of Thunder, but is ultimately no match. Maybe if Thor was fighting like the tiger or the alligator, he may have had a more difficult time. One of Thor's most persistent adversaries is the deadliest rock troll named Ulik. Yes, that was a sentence I just said. The species of rock trolls have a near impenetrable hide. They are unaffected by bullets and conventional weapons, making them incredibly sturdy and formidable. Their greatest warrior, Ulik, is one who may not have the brains of some villains or the powers of others, but the will to continue fighting long after he's been given a proper beating. Thor fights Ulik over and over again, because no matter how many times this rock troll takes a beating, he always comes back for more. So yes, Thor has defeated him multiple times, but if there's always another bout, can Thor really claim victory? I mean, yes, I certainly think so. Bloodaxe is one of the coolest looking Thor villains, who took on the name Bloodaxe, but only because the name Red Skull was taken. Bloodaxe actually fought a version of Thor whose body was shared by both Thor and Eric Masterson, who would go on to become the hero Thunderstrike. Bloodaxe is a character named Jackie Lucas, an architect who uncovered the axe of the executioner Scourge. This weapon is enchanted and said to be as powerful as Mjolnir. After she found this weapon, Bloodaxe actually tried to follow the hero path, but unfortunately was less like Captain America and more like the Punisher. She showed no mercy in the violent ways she defeated criminals. Eventually, Thor took issue with this and actually took a few tries to finally overcome the strength and durability of Bloodaxe, which in many ways matched his own. The Destroyer is an emotionless killing machine made of near impenetrable armor, with the capability of blowing up a small town. This armor is more neutral than it is a villain, though it has been wielded as a powerful weapon against Thor. This armor is so powerful that Odin has even worn it to fight Celestials. On its own, however, it still serves as a powerful guardian over the treasure room on Asgard, protecting the relics Odin has collected over the years. In 2011's Thor, when Odin fell into a deep sleep and Thor was banished to Earth stripped of his power, Loki temporarily took the throne. When it seemed as though Thor may make his way back to Asgard to fix the mess he had made, Loki took control of the Destroyer armor and sent it to destroy the town Thor was in on Earth. Nearly killed by the metal behemoth, Thor regained his power and used Mjolnir to impressively defeat the Destroyer armor, which at that point was just a waste of spare parts. The Frost Giants of Jotunheim are much more powerful than they may appear. When your size allows you to be called a giant, and you've been raised on a cold, desolate world, it's safe to say you can take on some of the strongest beings in the universe. The true race of Thor's brother Loki, the Frost Giants in Asgard have an extremely tumultuous relationship. The king of the Frost Giants, Laufey, and Odin have an iffy agreement of peace.
We are beyond diplomacy now, All-Father.
But it is broken very easily when Thor goes to Jotunheim to set the tone for how great yet foolish of a warrior he is. It may have been Loki who eventually took out his biological father, but Thor started the conflict by cutting through Frost Giant after Frost Giant like butter. The other villain called Serpent may just be a man, and of course by just a man I do mean Thor's uncle capable of destroying worlds, but Thor's so awesome he's beaten down a literal serpent as well. Basically, Loki should really stop having kids. The Midgard Serpent started out as the son of Loki and a sorceress, and was originally named Jormungand. Odin, who just loves banishing things without fear of repercussions, did just that to the reptilian creature for the fear of its deadly potential. He sent the creature to the bottom of the ocean, only for it to come back decades later having grown to the size of a skyscraper, with a sworn vengeance against Asgard. Sick move, Odin. Thor and the Serpent are destined to do battle, and even though the Serpent's powers are nearly limitless, Thor finds a way to bring the creature down. If you thought brothers were bad, how about sisters? Now, traditionally in the comics, Hela is the goddess of death, but not actually Thor's sister. Instead, she is actually the daughter of Loki. The MCU did a little retconning to make the main villain and conflict of Thor Ragnarok a family affair. Hela is an extremely powerful being, and in the film, Thor actually has to call in backup to finally take Hela out. He hits her with every ounce of lightning power he has, and that still fails to take her completely down. Clearly, she tends to be more powerful than Thor, and even took out the entire Asgardian army. However, in the comics, Thor at times is able to match power with the goddess of death. Together, he and Odin have never allowed Hela to accomplish her goals. Thor's villains are often some of the most powerful beings in the universe, backed by magic, cosmic power, and relics that date back to the creation of the universe itself. Then again, sometimes his toughest fight is against a robot version of himself. During the Civil War storyline in the comics, Reed Richards and Tony Stark built a robot version of Thor named Ragnarok, after the prophesized end of the world. This replica was so good that it fooled everyone in the war into believing that it was the real Thor, even delivering such a powerful blow to kill Goliath. It was only when Reed basically changed its batteries that everyone learned it was a robot. But still, created by an incredible mind, it gave Thor one heck of a challenge until he proved that there's nothing like the original. Surtur is the being prophesized to destroy Asgard during the event known as Ragnarok. And in fact, he did just that in Thor Ragnarok. However, in the comics, unlike in the movie, Thor shockingly doesn't actually want this big fire demon to destroy his home and the people he loves. Wild, right? Even in the MCU at his normal size, before he was able to join with the Eternal Flame, Thor was able to beat Surtur before the opening title sequence. In the comics, while Surtur sometimes fulfills the prophecy and succeeds, there has been times where Thor has successfully stopped Ragnarok, meaning no matter how big Surtur gets, Thor can always bring the hammer down. Plus, even in the MCU, Thor kind of tricked him, and it looked like Surtur kind of exploded with Asgard, so technical knockout there? Imagine, if you will, that you're a warmongering ruler of Asgard who wipes out an entire species in your conquests. That species then reforms into one giant being, harnessing all the strength from the entire race that was wiped out. And now that singular being is really mad at you. That's pretty much the story with the villain Mangog. Odin is responsible for the creation of this beast that is one of the hardest enemies Thor has ever and will ever face. Mangog went on a rampage that killed the entire Asgardian royal family and all of its warriors. It was actually the mighty Thor, Jane Foster, who defeated this unkillable beast by tying it to Mjolnir and throwing it into the sun. This was only temporary, of course, as the fury of Mangog would return, hopefully one day giving Thor another chance. If you've heard it once, you've heard it 14,605 times, but Thanos is one bad dude. Possibly the most well-known villain from Marvel Comics, who served as the overarching villain throughout the first 3 phases of the MCU. He's done battle with just about everyone, in an attempt to prove himself the greatest warrior in the galaxy. Thor did direct battle with the Mad Titan in Avengers Infinity War and came the closest to defeating him, instead choosing to bury his axe into his chest, allowing Thanos to snap away half the universe. Though it was too late, Thor still returned to finish the job and decapitated Thanos. Several heroes have lost to and also beaten Thanos in the pages of the comic books, and there's perhaps no more intimidating force that has affected Thor more. He won, but it came at a terrible price. The Black Winter is a cosmic multiversal being that, let's just say, caused a lot of problems in a whole lot of universes. On Earth 616, the Black Winter hunted down Galactus, chasing him all the way to Asgard, where he found Thor and made him the Herald of Thunder. Imbued with the power cosmic, Thor and Galactus fought the Black Winter together, but with no avail. Even Thor's strongest moves could not touch the entity. Eventually, the Black Winter killed Galactus, and in a last-ditch effort, Thor, the Herald of Thunder, used Galactus' body as a bomb to finally defeat the multiversal cosmic being. Luckily, this moment is emblematic of Thor and Galactus' relationship. Oh, wait. The Devourer of Worlds, Galactus, has likely been an enemy of just about every hero and most villains in the Marvel Universe. I mean, it makes sense. If a guy tried to eat your planet, you probably wouldn't be best friends either. Galactus is one of the most powerful beings in the entire universe. He wields the power cosmic and outmatches just about every other known being. Thor has encountered him multiple times and never won, barely even surviving. However, eventually in the far future, Thor becomes Old King Thor. This version is much wiser and more powerful, even wielding the Odin Force, allowing him to finally take down the Devourer of Worlds. Should Galactus ever arrive, we all better hope Thor has a metal arm and an eye patch. Thor, time and time again, proves himself worthy of kicking some of the most powerful butt in the universe. Which of Thor's villains that he's defeated do you think is the best of the best?